everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Monsters. I'm Chell Bane, and this is my daughter, Kenna Bane. Here we are, it's the beginning of November, and, a lot of people seem to struggle, with their seasonal depression. There's just regular old depression. There's grief that people are dealing with. There's loss. There's a lot of suicidal ideation and people who are seriously contemplating suicide around this time of the year because of the holidays coming up. We have Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, we have Hanukkah, we have all the different holidays that people celebrate, right? And I think it's important that, with Kenna and I, we have a family story. We have a story that, our story is 23. One of our stories, our biggest story, our life-changing story is, it was 23 years ago. Kenna was 6 months old and her sister Chelsea was 6 years old. And I lost my first husband, Jason. It was a terrible accident, an accident that I witnessed, and it was 4 days after Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that knows me, right, Kenna, they know what's my favorite holiday ever. Christmas. And it's always been, and I always wanted to have, special holidays like that because I didn't really experience that as a kid. So it was important that you guys had amazing holidays and things like that. But when we lost Jay, and obviously you were a baby and don't, remember a lot of this, thankfully, I remember thinking to myself, like, I will never celebrate Christmas again. I will never do New Year's. He died right between Christmas and New Year's. And I can still, to this day, now that I remember, a lot of things that happened, I remember laying on Jason's mom's couch on New Year's Eve when everyone was getting ready to go out and everybody was like, getting ready to celebrate New Year's. And I remember just laying there thinking, like, how can all these people do that? How are they celebrating? How are they just okay? Like, everybody's life is just going on and mine is destroyed forever and it'll never be the same. And I think there's a lot of people out there that probably feel that way right now, or, they've dealt with their own traumas, and especially loss and grief. It's so hard. And this could be someone's first Thanksgiving without someone. It could be, their first Christmas, whatever it might be. It takes a toll on you. And a lot of people don't know how to deal with those emotions. And I know I didn't. I was 25 years old and I had no clue how to deal with those emotions. Like, I just felt like my life was over.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure, a lot of people think that way, right?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people that have a hard time also feel very alone in that feeling as well.
Right. And one of the things too, I just remember people always would be like, oh, don't worry. Time heals everything. It really does. It heals everything. And I think that, so many of us, when we're in this position that we have to grieve a loved one, so close, and like someone who was the main part of our family, and it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult to even think positive thoughts or think that it might get better. And even with us, 23 years ago, this happened, but every year at Christmas.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of people think that, like, when people hear, like, oh, time heals, but there's, like, this saying that I've always thought of where time heals the wound, but there's still a scar.
For sure. And there's still that absence of that person. And, I am remarried now to a wonderful guy, and thankfully he's very accepting, and sometime down the road, everyone will hear our story that I've known him since 6th grade and he knew Jay and all the things. But thankfully he is good about the way we remember Jay. But even when it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, everything, it still makes me sad. It still makes me sad. And I feel that we still grieve the fact that, you guys don't have his presence because he was so amazing. And, the boys, you know, my grandsons, they don't experience him, and that he never gets to celebrate another Christmas with his family. Like, all those thoughts go through your head. And then I think some people go down that deep, dark hole, and then they can't get out of it. They don't know how to deal with that loss and how to move forward with the holidays. I mean, like, what do you think? Like, even you've always heard about him.
Yeah.
But you were 6 months old.
It definitely, like, when I was little, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what I was missing out on. So it was kind of in reverse, where the older I got, the more I grieved. Because I started realizing all the things he wouldn't be there for. And so, yeah, the holidays and Christmas, Thanksgiving, especially the day he died, being right around then. And then even his birthday is right before fall. So it kind of is all condensed into one time frame. And those started to get really hard for me, especially during, like, my teen years.
Do you think that there's anything that helped you through that? Did it make it better that we always kept his memory alive and we always talked about him?
Well, yeah, that definitely helped a lot. And it helped that you always went, like, so far out of your way to make sure that we had, like, the best Christmas we could have.
Right.
And
now, mind you, like, for so many years too, I felt guilty for having Christmas. Like, because
guilty for having Christmas without him?
Without him. Like, he you know, everybody believes their own thing. And, you know, in my world, I believe that he was still watching over us. He was still right there, but it always made me feel some type of way. And it still does. It still, to this day, we'll think about him and talk about him. It did get easier, but it never goes away. Like, I don't think that pain goes away. And
I feel like time makes it turn into more of, like, a bittersweet thing to talk about.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And one of the reasons I wanted to tell our story and kind of get that out there is, you know, suicide and depression are so bad during this time of the year. And if someone just has a little bit of one of those things around this time of the year, they just really, really struggle, especially if they don't have people who reach out, people who, you know, make sure that they're okay. And a lot of times I think people are afraid to. They're afraid to reach out because they don't know what to say.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a big thing. I feel like even with all the loss that we've been through, everything, even when somebody that you know loses somebody or is going through a really hard time, sometimes even I still don't know what to say to them.
Right.
Because I know growing up, I hated hearing, like, oh, I'm so sorry. Right. So I was like, why are you sorry? You didn't do anything. Like, I'm just sick of hearing it. Right. Because I was all angsty and stuff as a teenager.
Right.
But even, like, I feel like a lot of people don't understand that it's very kind to be like, oh, let me know if you need anything or if you need anything at all. Like, please let me know. Like, don't hesitate to ask. It's really nice to say that, but nobody's going to reach out and just be like, hey, like, can you do this for me? Right. You got to kind of just go out of your way and do those things so that people don't feel alone.
So we have to make sure, and people need to know, be intentional. Like, really reach out to people. Let them know I'm sure they are. And I know we've been in the situation where we are so sorry to hear what they're going through. But, you know, I know, like, when people would say, like, oh, reach out if you need anything. I'm never asking anybody for anything. I am not reaching out. But I know something I try to do now, because it's one thing that did bother me like that. It's almost like being intentional. We have to say, okay, I'm going to order food for you guys. Pick this, or that. Or I'm going to swing by. Is that okay? I'm just checking on you. Like, how are you doing? Like, how are things going?
Yeah, like, I was about to say, even, like, as simple as just genuinely asking, like, how are you doing?
Right.
And asking questions in case they do want to just talk.
Right.
Like, that can also help so much.
Right. Right. And giving, I think, you know, what we've learned over there, because, I mean, we even had, you know, when we lost Eli, you know, we lost Eli, who, you know, was your boy. We'll get, that's a whole nother episode. We lost Eli 2 years ago. And I know even at Christmas time, you know, he celebrated his first Christmases with us, where he learned what it was all about, and family and dinners and just being happy in that way. And this will be the second Christmas, right? No,
it's gonna be the third.
I think it will be the third, but I just don't. I am sure you remember too. Like that first Christmas, I beat myself up inside thinking that Eli's not going to experience that again. Yeah. Like he only got to experience 3 Christmases in his life, and people would say things that say, "Oh, I think it's hard," and you were going through even your own stuff and cancer and all the things, but it still was like such a hole in your heart, like to where you felt bad. Like, and I think that people just become either silent or people avoid you because they don't know what to say. That's like an issue.
It even comes down to like asking how somebody is doing during a time like that. Some people don't even want to ask that because they feel a little awkward that they're not going to know what to say if you actually tell them how you're doing.
Right. And it's like you wonder, okay, well, they're obviously completely devastated, heartbroken in every negative thing you could say in relation to that. Like, what do you say then when they let you know? Then what do you do? Maybe we offer, is it okay if I come by? Instead of, let me know if you want me to swing by, or let me know if you want to talk. Just, it's more like giving them options. When you just give them 1 or 2 options and not to where they have to just answer a question or reach out for that help. I think that that's a big deal too.
Well, I even remember like with Eli passing away, after a little bit, I appreciated everybody asking how I was doing and stuff like that. But I got sick of answering it. I got sick of talking about it. I just didn't want to talk about it. Right. But it felt nice to know that there were people there. Whether or not you're just talking to me about something that has nothing to do with anything that I'm feeling, you're just spending time with me, or we're just not even talking. We're just with each other,
hanging out, just hanging out
in each other's presence,
right?
And that just helps people not feel alone so much. So it doesn't always have to be just talking about such sad, like depressing things.
Even if it's like to go to a movie or come over and watch a movie, just having the presence of someone else, distractions, because I can tell you that is what you need, are distractions, because otherwise, people are just in their head, and people being in their head this time of the year, and, it doesn't have to just be loss. It could be like loss with the economy, and people can't afford things, and they're really beating themselves up, even when it comes to their children and being able to afford food or buying gifts for their children for the holidays. And I don't know.
Well, because it's very much a thing of where you do need to think about those things, so you're not just pushing it away and locking it up and just letting it build up. But then there's the other side of it, to where if you think about it too much, you let it consume you. And it becomes all you think about, and it completely affects you in every way. Right. So there's a nice little balance you have to find in the middle.
Right. Totally agree. So we've talked a lot about grief and losing loved ones and their absence, during the holidays, and does that get easier or doesn't it, and time and all the things. But something really important that we have to make sure we touch on is the fact that some people are grieving the living, right? They're grieving the relationships they no longer have. They're grieving not being a part of a family, and there's strained relationships. And I will tell you, since after the election, the families that are very strained, and I can remember seeing one that of someone who's pretty well known, and she has her own beliefs and is remarried or is married and all the things, but because of the election, her and her parents are not okay, like because of the election and not supporting her and her choices. And that's really hard to see, and it's really sad, like when I look at things like that, because I think, when you want to judge from the outside, you're like, oh my gosh, just get over it, life's too short, whatever.
That was a big thing I saw a lot last election too, in 2020. There is a lot of family strains that is happening between the two sides. Right.
Isn't the rule, don't talk about politics with people? Like, just, you can have your own beliefs, but even parties. I know Dan and I, We're not talking about politics because, it's always an argument with someone, or someone takes it to heart too much and doesn't respect somebody else's beliefs or their wishes, and what they believe in. And I think that makes it really hard. And, that's just one of the things. There's so many strained families out there, or people.
Yeah, I mean, even people that are not close with their family or aren't in contact with them at all, just because of the type of people they might be, right. Stuff like that, things that happen,
alcoholism, drugs, abuse, like there's just so many things, or people just simply not agreeing with someone's actions or the way they say something, so they no longer talk, which that leads to like isolation with people, and
it still very much is loss,
correct,
just in a different sense,
right? They're still absent from their people. So it's the same thing. And people struggle with that. And it makes it a lot harder this time of year. These holidays that are coming, daylight savings, we're dealing with that, the shorter days, seasonal depression, which, that is real. People really do get depressed like that. God, don't you remember when we lived in Ohio? Yeah. Or we'd go back home to Ohio after living in Florida for 20 some years. You go back and you're like, whew. In the wintertime, that's
like the only thing that would get you through the wintertime was that Christmas and stuff was coming up.
Like, yay, we're gonna have snow for Christmas. Like, that was something to look forward to. But I can remember even myself, with all the things that we've been through. Oh my gosh, I was like so depressed. You don't want to get out of bed as much. You don't have that drive to do anything, and
it's like
it's a real
gloom
thing.
And doom.
Yeah. And then you just go further in the hole of that depression and that sadness.
Well, Christmas and stuff, Christmas, Hanukkah, any holiday around this time, Thanksgiving,
right?
They're all like marketed as these family gatherings of like the best memories you could ever make with your family. Everybody's so happy and jolly and joyful.
Right.
And not a lot of people have that.
Right.
That's actually, I feel like, pretty hard to come by. Like, if you have that to where you can get through the holidays without there being any kind of drama or craziness or being alone or feeling alone in some type of way, like, you're pretty lucky.
Right.
Because that's not typically the normal anymore.
So even, I don't know why this just popped in my head, but I was thinking about how people at Christmas time and stuff, they post all over social media, like, oh, look what my kids got, or look at all these presents. And it's something that I've always tried not to do. And we've heard, other people say, even when it comes to Santa Claus, like these little kids, if one family is, more well off than another, and, you're able to buy your kids a lot of presents that are coming
from Santa.
Quote, Santa Claus. And then you have these other kids like, well, why doesn't...
If you have any kids listening to this right now, turn this off.
Yes, definitely. Because it's just the fact that they think, well, why doesn't Santa love me as much as that person then? So it's like we have to be really careful. And especially with social media and everything that is out there now, kids see everything.
Yeah, well, I remember even when I was like 11, 12, and Instagram was first becoming a big thing, I think maybe like 1 year, because everybody else was doing it, I posted like what I got for Christmas. Because literally everyone would post it.
Right.
And then after that, I kind of came to this like realization that it's kind of messed up to do. Like, what about the people that didn't get as much as me?
Right.
Or whatever. Like, I feel like we've also really tried to instill that in like Brayden. And then once Leo's old enough, like, you don't just go around telling your friends everything you got for Christmas.
Everything you got, right.
Because there are some kids that don't get as much as you.
Right. And I think, I'm sure there's plenty of people that'll disagree with me or tell me that I shouldn't think this way or that we shouldn't be this way when it comes to those things. But I'm a firm believer now that, for one, we teach them don't go around announcing it, for one. And then two, it's just the fact that people...
Oh, are you talking about only one gift from Santa?
Yes. I think that people are going to disagree on this, because everybody has an opinion and everybody wants to tell you you're wrong. But I've always loved that. Like, after, probably on social media and hearing and seeing different people talk about different things, to where, okay, there's one gift from Santa. like just a gift. Whether it's a Barbie doll or a stuffed animal, that's from Santa.
Like something simple.
And unfortunately, all families can't do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the same amount of money. They don't have the means, or they just don't believe in giving a lot of gifts or whatever it might be. But in our family, fortunately for you guys, I've always been all about Christmas.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's the one gift from Santa and the rest is from...
was like from me
Mom.
or from us or whatever. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
I think it's important for kids not to feel, any type of way as far as how much they're loved or why aren't they liked as much, because they're already struggling with all that so much and their identities and all the things that are out there, that we don't need to make it about Christmas too.
Yeah.
To where they struggle.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I think overall we've touched on, quite a few things without boring everyone and making it super long, to close out and just, try to remind everyone that there's just a lot of people out there struggling. And sometimes all they need is that invite to dinner. All they need is that invite to a movie. Try to include people that might be struggling, with grief or the loss of loved ones or the loss of family, or friends. All not meaning that they passed away, but just like they're not part of that any longer. So making them feel wanted. I think that that's really a big deal as far as, I think with the suicide rates around this time of year. I think when people are dealing with those kind of things, they isolate. Mm-hmm. They want to be by themselves. And even when people do offer to invite them, they don't feel good enough, or they feel like they're a burden. And it's important for us to make sure those people don't feel that way, and to make sure that they do feel wanted and they can belong to something. Even if it's your family, you bring them in. I mean, all of our life, we didn't have family we talked to.
Yeah.
As far you guys didn't get wonderful grandma and grandpa and all the things from me. It's always, until Dan, it's been, which is like with the last 6 years, it's been me and my girls, and then me and my girls and Brayden, and then comes Leo, but Dan was already here then. So, but that's how we lived. And we were lucky though, that we had many friends that we made our family. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like even the times that, like, for Thanksgiving or something that we didn't go over somebody else's house or anything, we had it at home, we always invited friends and people that we considered family, or even just friends if you felt like maybe they didn't have somewhere to go for Thanksgiving. I remember all the time we would have like 2 of my friends or 2 of Chelsea's, like just a mixture of people at the house.
And everybody knew, like, and because of other traumas and things, you guys never went anywhere. I was super protective, all the things. So our house was the house where everybody was allowed to come.
Yeah.
Everybody could come and hang out, and they knew that was family-like, So I think that that's important for everybody to take away. Just don't forget about people, and even if they are dealing with the loss of a loved one, even if it's been 5 years, that doesn't mean they're not still struggling.
Yeah.
Everybody grieves in their own time frame. They deal with things differently, and it's super important that we include people. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, guys, this is all we have for you today. We hope that you can take something from this and apply it to your own life or your own surroundings, and we hope we see you next week. Thank you.